Captain Han Tae-woo stood tall in his pressed uniform. His dark eyes watched the ceremony with growing unease. Around him, other officers from the Galactic Coalition smiled and laughed. They were celebrating their victory over the Sylvan Empire. After 3 years of brutal war, the large hall was filled with the many different species that made up the Coalition forces. Humans were among the newest members, having joined only 15 years ago. As junior partners, they had little say in Coalition customs or rules. Captain Han Tae-woo stepped forward, called General Cruel, his deep voice echoing through the hall. Tae-woo walked to the center of the room. His boots made sharp sounds against the metal floor. The room grew quiet as everyone turned to watch. For your bravery at the Battle of Proxima Centauri, where you saved over 3,000 Coalition troops, we honor you today, said General Cruel. His green skin glistened under the bright lights, and the tentacles around his mouth twitched with what might have been a smile. Tae-woo nodded stiffly. Thank you, General. I only did my duty. Such modesty. The general laughed, but great service deserves great reward. He clapped his four-fingered hands, and 2 guards entered the room. Between them walked a slender figure with blue skin. Her head was bowed, showing long silver hair that fell past her shoulders. Her wrists were bound with thin metal cuffs. This is Nari of House Veli, announced the general. A noble daughter of the Sylvan royal court. She is yours now, human. Tae-woo felt his stomach turn. Earth had ended slavery centuries ago. Though humans were now part of the larger galactic community, they had kept their belief that no person should own another. The Coalition had agreed to respect this view, yet here they were, giving him a person as if she were an object. General, Tae-woo began. She is of the highest quality, continued the general, not letting him speak. Educated in the finest schools of the Empire, she speaks 7 languages, including your Earth standard. She will serve you well. The alien woman finally looked up. Her eyes were solid silver without pupils, yet Tae-woo could feel her gaze. Her face showed no emotion, but her eyes held a mixture of fear and pride. I appreciate the thought, General, Tae-woo said carefully. But on Earth, we don't keep slaves. The room fell silent. Several officers looked at each other with surprise or amusement. The general's tentacles stiffened. She is not a slave, Captain. She is a war prize. The distinction is important in Coalition law. Tae-woo knew he was on dangerous ground. Refusing the gift would insult the general and possibly damage Earth's standing in the Coalition. But accepting meant participating in something he found deeply wrong. I meant no offense, General, he said. I'm honored by the recognition of my service. The general nodded, apparently satisfied. He handed Tae-woo a small metal device. The control chip. It links to her cuffs and can deliver correction if needed, though I doubt you'll need it. The Sylvan nobles are well behaved, unlike their warrior class. Tae-woo took the device, fighting, to keep his face neutral. The woman, Nari, was now looking directly at him, her silver eyes unblinking. The ceremony is complete, announced the general. Let the celebration continue. Music began to play again. Officers returned to their drinks and conversations. Tae-woo was left standing with his reward. Follow me, he said quietly to Nari. She moved behind him without a word as he walked out of the hall. Several officers patted him on the back as he passed, offering congratulations or crude jokes that made his jaw tighten. They walked in silence through the corridors of the space station until they reached his quarters. The door slid open and he motioned for her to enter first. Once inside with the door closed, Tae-woo immediately pulled out the control device. Let me remove these, he said, using the device to unlock her cuffs. They fell to the floor with a soft clang. Nari rubbed her wrists, surprise crossing her blue features. You are releasing me? I'm not your owner, Tae-woo said firmly. He placed the control device on the floor and crushed it under his boot. And this thing shouldn't exist. Nari watched him with careful eyes. What do you plan to do with me? Then? Nothing. You're free. I'll arrange transport back to your people when— There is nowhere to return to, she interrupted, speaking perfect Earth standard. My house is destroyed, my family is dead. If you reject me, I will be given to another officer, likely one far less humane. Tae-woo ran a hand through his short black hair. He hadn't considered this. The war had devastated the Sylvan Empire. Many noble houses had been completely wiped out. Then stay as my guest, not my slave, he finally said. I'll figure something out. Nari tilted her head. Your people truly do not keep slaves? This is not just your personal choice? Earth outlawed slavery over 500 years ago. When we joined the coalition, we made it clear we wouldn't participate in their prize system. Or so I thought. He sighed. Apparently their solution was to give the slaves to humans instead. Clever, Nari said without humor. And what will your superiors say when they learn you have not used your prize as intended? I don't care what they say. I won't treat a person like property. Tae-woo walked to a small cabinet and took out a second blanket and pillow. You can take the bed. I'll sleep on the couch until we can arrange better quarters. Nari stood very still, watching him prepare the couch. You are unlike the others, she said finally. They told us humans were savages, barely more advanced than animals, yet you show more honor than any coalition officer I have met. Tae-woo smiled sadly. Humans have done plenty of terrible things throughout our history, but we try to learn from our mistakes. He paused. I'm sorry for what happened to your people. War is never kind, Nari replied. Her silver eyes seemed to look past him for a moment, especially when fought over secrets. Secrets? Tae-woo asked. Nari turned away. Nothing that matters now. House Veli is fallen. I am the last, and soon even our name will be forgotten. What neither of them knew was that Nari carried a genetic secret that would soon make her the most hunted person in the galaxy, and that Tae-woo's simple act of kindness had just changed the course of galactic history. In the station's command center, Commander Jiho reviewed the security footage from Captain Han's quarters with narrow eyes. Track their movements, he ordered a junior officer. I want to know everything they do everywhere they go. Yes, sir, the officer replied. May I ask, why? Commander Jiho shut off the screen. Because that Sylvan woman is more than she appears, and now she has found protection with one of our own. This could complicate everything. 3 weeks had passed since Captain Han Tae-woo received Nari as his war prize. Life aboard the Coalition flagship had settled into an uneasy routine. Tae-woo had arranged for Nari to have separate quarters connected to his by a shared living area. It was not perfect, but it gave her privacy while maintaining the appearance that she was still his property. Tae-woo sat at his desk reviewing mission reports. The door slid open and Nari entered with a tray of food. You missed the meal service again, she said, placing the tray beside him. Tae-woo looked up, surprised. You didn't have to bring me food. If I did not, you would not eat. Nari's silver eyes watched him carefully. And if you become weak from hunger, what happens to me? It was a practical concern. In the 3 weeks they had lived this strange arrangement, Nari had remained cautious, never fully trusting his promise of freedom. Thank you, he said, taking a bite of the bland space station food. How was your day? The same as yesterday. I read the books you gave me about Earth. Your planet has an interesting history. Tae-woo nodded. Plenty of mistakes we're still trying to fix. Nari moved to the window that looked out at the stars. My people believed we were the first civilization in the galaxy. We thought all others were beneath us. She touched the glass. Now our empire is broken and I serve a human. You don't serve me, Tae-woo corrected quickly. The others do not know that. Nari turned to face him. I have heard what they say when you are not present. They think you are weak because you treat me with kindness. Tae-woo sighed. He had heard the whispers too. Coalition officers had begun to mock him behind his back. Some suggested he was not using his prize properly. Others thought he was too soft to be a good soldier. Let them talk, he said. Words cannot hurt us. But they can make your position difficult. Your commander watches you closely now. Tae-woo knew she was right. Commander Jiho had been giving him harder assignments, testing his loyalty. Last week, he had been sent on a dangerous mission to secure a former Sylvan outpost. He suspected it was partly to see if he would follow orders that might harm Nari's people. "There is a diplomatic function tonight," Taewoo said, changing the subject. "All senior officers must attend. Will you be comfortable staying here alone?" Nari tilted her head. "Will the other prizes be at this function?" Taewoo frowned. "Yes, probably. Then I should attend as well. My absence will be noticed." He wanted to argue but knew she was right. In the careful game they were playing, appearances mattered. "Very well," he agreed. "But stay close to me." The diplomatic function was held in the station's grand hall. Representatives from all coalition species mingled with military officers. The mood was celebratory. The war was won and new territories were being divided among the victors. Taewoo stood near the edge of the room, a drink in his hand. Nari stood quietly beside him, wearing the simple blue dress he had acquired for her. Unlike the other prizes in the room, she wore no collar or restraints. "Captain Han," a voice boomed. Commander Krag, a large Kreldor officer, approached them. His facial tentacles twitched with amusement. "Enjoying your reward?" "Commander." Taewoo nodded stiffly. Krag's four eyes moved to Nari, a fine specimen of Sylvan nobility. Their females are known for their— His tentacles curled suggestively. "Talents." Taewoo felt Nari stiffen beside him but kept his face neutral. "Nari has been very helpful with translating Sylvan documents." Krag laughed loudly. "Documents, is that what humans call it?" He drained his drink. "You should loan her to me sometime. I could show her what a real warrior expects." Before Taewoo could respond, another voice joined them. "Captain Han," Commander Jiho said, appearing at his side. "I need to speak with you about tomorrow's mission." Jiho was a human like Taewoo but had risen higher in the coalition ranks. Many said he had done so by adopting coalition ways more fully than most humans. "Of course, Commander," Taewoo replied, grateful for the interruption. Jiho nodded to Krag, who reluctantly moved away. Then he turned to Taewoo. "You're drawing attention, Captain. And not the good kind." "I'm following regulations, sir." "Barely." Jiho's eyes flicked to Nari. "The coalition has traditions. When humans joined, we agreed to respect those traditions." "With respect, sir. We also insisted on maintaining our own values." Jiho lowered his voice. "This isn't Earth, Captain. Out here, we adapt or we become irrelevant. Humans can't afford to be seen as weak." Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion across the room. Commander Krag had grabbed one of the Sylvan prizes by the arm and was pulling her toward the exit. The woman was resisting, though quietly to avoid making a scene. Taewoo saw. Nari watching, her silver eyes narrowed. Without thinking, he handed his drink to Jiho. "Excuse me, sir." He crossed the room quickly. Krag was now gripping the Sylvan woman's arm tightly enough to leave marks on her green-blue skin. "Commander Krag," Taewoo said evenly. "Is there a problem?" Krag turned, his tentacles flaring with annoyance. "This does not concern you, human. We're at a diplomatic function. Creating a disturbance concerns everyone." The Sylvan woman looked at Taewoo with surprised hope in her silver eyes. She was younger than Nari, barely more than a girl. "My prize is being difficult," Krag growled. "I am taking her somewhere to teach her manners." Taewoo stepped closer. "Perhaps she's tired. The evening has been long." "Are you telling me how to handle my property?" Krag's voice rose, drawing attention from nearby guests. "No. I'm suggesting that diplomacy extends to all our actions tonight." Krag released the Sylvan girl with a push. She stumbled back but remained standing. Then he turned his full attention to Taewoo. "You think you're better than the rest of us," he snarled. "Strutting around with your prize untethered, pretending you're too good for the spoils of war." Before Taewoo could respond, Krag lunged forward. His fist connected with Taewoo's jaw, sending him staggering back. Years of combat. Training took over and Taewoo regained his balance quickly. He did not strike back. Fighting at a diplomatic function would mean serious trouble. Security officers rushed over, separating them. Commander Jiho appeared, his face tight with anger. "Captain Han, report to my office immediately," he ordered. "Commander Cragg, control yourself or be removed." "Property interference," Jiho said coldly from behind his desk. "That's what will go in the official report." Tae-woo stood at attention, a bruise forming on his jaw. "He was hurting her, sir. She wasn't yours to protect." Jiho's eyes were hard. "Coalition regulations are clear. Officers do not interfere with another officer's property. She's a person, not property." Jiho slammed his hand on the desk. "Save your Earth morality for Earth. Out here you follow Coalition rules or you endanger every human in the fleet." Tae-woo remained silent, knowing anything he said would only make things worse. Jiho sighed. "You're restricted to quarters for 3 days. Consider yourself lucky it's not worse." Dismissed. Nari was waiting when Tae-woo returned to his quarters. She said nothing as he entered, but her eyes immediately went to the bruise on his face. "You should not have interfered," she said as she brought him a cold pack for his jaw. "I couldn't just watch." Nari placed the pack gently against his bruise. "Your people are strange," she said quietly. "You claim moral superiority, yet ally yourselves with slavers." "Many of us opposed joining the coalition," Tae-woo admitted. "But Earth needed protection after the Hive Wars. It was a devil's bargain." Nari considered this. "There are always choices, even difficult ones." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden blaring alarm. Red lights flashed in the corridor outside. "What's happening?" Nari asked, her voice tense. Tae-woo moved to his computer terminal. "Security breach. The station has been..." The door to his quarters burst open. Armed security officers rushed in, weapons raised. "Step away from the Sylvan, Captain," ordered one of the officers. Tae-woo moved instinctively to shield Nari. "What is the meaning of this?" Commander Jiho entered behind the security team. His face was grim. "Stand aside, Captain. We have intelligence that the Sylvan female is carrying genetic information that could destabilize the peace." "What genetic information?" Tae-woo demanded, not moving. Nari's silver eyes met his. "I am the last carrier of the concordance sequence," she said quietly. "My genetic code contains the activation key for ancient weapons that could destroy the coalition." The security officers moved closer, weapons still aimed. "Final warning, Captain," Jiho said. "Stand aside or be arrested for treason." Tae-woo made his choice. "She's under my protection by coalition law," he stated firmly. "Any attempt to seize her violates the treaty." As the alarms continued to blare, Tae-woo realized he had just positioned himself against his own people to protect someone who might be their greatest threat. "We have 18 minutes before they override my security codes," Tae-woo said, moving quickly around his quarters. He grabbed a small bag and began filling it with essential supplies. Medical kits, food rations, and a spare communicator went into the bag. Nari stood by the door, her silver eyes watching him work. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "You're risking everything for someone who was given to you as property." Tae-woo paused and looked at her. "Because you're a person, not a weapon," he replied. "And I've seen enough of what the coalition does with weapons." The alarms continued to blare throughout the station. Red emergency lights flashed in the corridor outside, casting strange shadows across Nari's blue skin. "What is your plan?" she asked. "We need to reach the shuttle bay on level 4, Tae-woo explained. "If we can get to a shuttle, we might make it to the neutral territory in the fringe worlds." Nari nodded. "They will track us." "Not if we disable the tracking systems." Tae-woo finished packing and handed Nari a small laser pistol. "Do you know how to use this?" She took the weapon with practiced ease. "My people were not always diplomats and nobles." Tae-woo smiled despite the danger. "Good. I'd rather not shoot at my own people, but we can't be captured." "Because of what I carry," Nari said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Tae-woo checked his, own weapon. "What exactly is this concordance sequence?" "Something my family protected for 10 generations," she replied. "I will explain everything when we are safe." Tae-woo nodded. There was no time for a longer discussion. He moved to the door panel and entered a series of codes. I'm going to trigger a security alert in the opposite section. It should draw most of the guards away from our path. The computer beeped in confirmation. On a small screen, they could see guards running toward the far end of the station. Now, Tae-woo said. The door slid open and they slipped into the corridor. They moved quickly but carefully through the service tunnels of the station. Tae-woo's command codes gave them access to areas most crew members couldn't enter. They avoided the main corridors where security would be heaviest. We need to go down 2 more levels, Tae-woo whispered as they reached a junction. There's a maintenance shaft that... He stopped as footsteps echoed ahead. They pressed themselves against the wall as the footsteps grew closer. A young woman in a coalition uniform appeared around the corner. She froze when she saw them, her hand moving to her weapon. Captain Han, she said, sounding surprised. They're looking for you everywhere. Tae-woo recognized her as Ensign Sunmi, one of the newer human recruits. He had trained her in combat techniques when she first arrived. Ensign, he said carefully, this isn't what it looks like. Sunmi's eyes moved from Tae-woo to Nari and back again. They say you've betrayed the coalition. They gave me a person as property, Sunmi, Tae-woo said, not raising his weapon. Who betrayed their principles first? The ensign hesitated, her hand still on her holstered weapon. Seconds stretched into what felt like minutes. Take exit shaft 4B, she finally said, lowering her hand. It's unguarded right now. I never saw you. She turned and walked away quickly. Tae-woo let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Come on, he said to Nari. We don't have much time. Exit shaft 4B led them directly to the lower level of the shuttle bay. They crouched behind cargo containers, surveying the area. 3 small shuttles sat ready for launch. 2 guards stood by the main entrance, but the emergency had pulled most of the security personnel elsewhere. We need to reach the 3rd shuttle, Tae-woo whispered. It's the only one with enough fuel to make it to the fringe. Nari nodded. I will create a distraction near the 1st shuttle. When the guards move to investigate, you prepare our escape vessel. That's too dangerous, Tae-woo objected. Do you have a better plan? Nari asked. Before he could answer, the shuttle bay doors opened. Commander Ji-ho entered with a full security team, weapons drawn. They've tracked us, Tae-woo muttered. We need a new plan. Too late for plans, Nari said. She suddenly stood and fired her weapon at a fuel canister near the 1st shuttle. The explosion wasn't large, but it created smoke and confusion. Alarms blared even louder as the security team scattered for cover. Run! Nari shouted, pulling Tae-woo toward the 3rd shuttle. They sprinted across the open bay as weapons fire erupted around them. Tae-woo fired back, aiming to disable rather than kill. They reached the shuttle ramp as security forces regrouped and advanced toward them. Get inside and start the engines, Tae-woo ordered, positioning himself at the bottom of the ramp to cover their retreat. Nari ran up the ramp as Tae-woo exchanged fire with the security team. Commander Ji-ho's voice boomed across the bay. Stand down, Captain, this is your last chance. Sorry, sir, Tae-woo muttered. Can't do that. A blast hit near his feet, sending sparks flying. He backed up the ramp, still firing. Then he heard Nari cry out. He turned to see her push him aside as a shot from Ji-ho's weapon grazed her shoulder. Blue blood seeped through her tunic as she stumbled. Tae-woo caught her and pulled her the rest of the way into the shuttle. He slammed his hand on the control panel and the ramp closed behind them. Blaster fire pounded against the shuttle's hull as he rushed to the cockpit. Why did you do that? He demanded as he initiated the launch sequence. Nari pressed a hand to her injured shoulder. You saved me from slavery, she replied through gritted teeth. I could not let you die for it. The shuttle engines roared to life. Warning lights flashed as the bay doors began to close, attempting to trap them inside. Hold on, Tae-woo said, gripping the controls tightly. He pushed the engines to full power, and the shuttle shot forward, barely clearing the doors as they closed. They were immediately met by coalition fighters scrambling to intercept them. This is going to be close, Tae-woo muttered as he weaved the shuttle through weapons fire. Nari moved to the co-pilot seat, still holding her wounded shoulder. Can we outrun them? Not for long, but we don't have to. Taewoo's hands flew over the controls. We just need to reach the jump point. The fighters closed in, weapons blazing. The shuttle rocked with near misses. A direct hit would destroy them completely. There, Taewoo said, pointing to a set of coordinates on the navigation screen. 10 seconds to jump point. The shuttle shuddered as a blast grazed their engine housing. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. 5 seconds. Taewoo counted down. 4, 3. A final blast hit them directly, knocking out their rear shields. 2, 1. Taewoo slammed the hyperspace control forward. The stars stretched into lines around them as they made the desperate jump to hyperspace, leaving the coalition fighters behind. Hours later, as the shuttle hurtled through hyperspace, Taewoo sat in the pilot's seat checking their course. Nari rested in the shuttle's small medical pod, her shoulder treated and bandaged. The wound wasn't deep, but it had been painful. A message alert flashed on his screen. With a sense of dread, he opened it. The message was brief and direct. Captain, Han Taewoo was now classified as a traitor to humanity. His rank was stripped. His family on Earth would be questioned. A reward was offered for his capture, dead or alive. He stared at the screen, the full weight of his decision finally hitting him. His career, his life on Earth, his future, all gone in an instant. Nari's voice came from behind him. "What will you do now?" she asked softly. Taewoo turned to see her standing in the doorway, her silver eyes watching him carefully. "Keep going forward," he answered. "There's no going back now." "You could still return me to them," Nari suggested. "Tell them I forced you. They might believe it." Taewoo shook his head. "That's not who I am." Nari moved to sit in the co-pilot's seat. "Then who are you, Han Taewoo? Not a coalition captain anymore, not an Earth soldier. Who?" He considered her question, looking out at the streaking stars of hyperspace. "Just a man trying to do what's right," he finally said. "And right now, that means getting you somewhere safe and finding out what this concordance sequence is that has everyone so afraid." Nari nodded slowly. "The concordance is more than a weapon," she said. "It's a key. A key to something the coalition fears more than anything." "And what's that?" "Change," she replied. "True freedom for all species." Taewoo looked at the navigation charts. The shuttle would reach the fringe worlds in 2 days if their damaged engines held. From there, they would need to disappear, find allies, and somehow stay ahead of both the coalition and anyone else who learned what Nari carried. Looking at the alien woman he had chosen to save, he found he couldn't regret his decision, despite everything he had lost. "Get some rest," he told her. "We have a long journey ahead." As Nari returned to the medical pod, Taewoo set the autopilot and closed his eyes. For the first time in years, he was no longer following orders. He was making his own choices, and somehow that felt right. The mining outpost of New Seoul on the moon of Titan II was nothing like the clean, orderly coalition stations. It was crowded, noisy, and smelled of engine fuel and too many different species living close together. Once a human colony, it had been claimed by the coalition and then largely forgotten. Now it served as a haven for those who wished to avoid official notice. Taewoo and Nari had been there for 3 months. They lived in a small apartment above a repair shop, paying their rent by helping fix damaged ships. Taewoo's military training made him useful as a mechanic, while Nari's knowledge of different species and languages helped them deal with customers. They had changed their appearances as much as possible. Taewoo had grown a beard and let his hair grow longer. Nari used a special dye that made her blue skin look more purple, common among mixed-species traders. Her silver eyes were hidden behind dark lenses. Today, they sat in their small living space, studying data on a screen. Nari had been teaching Taewoo about the concordance sequence for weeks. "So the sequence isn't a weapon," Taewoo said, looking at the complex patterns on the screen. "It's a key to communication with the precursors." "Yes," Nari confirmed. "The species your people call precursors were not destroyed as the coalition claims. They ascended to another form of existence. And your people were what? Created by them? Nari nodded. My ancestors were their genetic experiments. We carry their legacy in our DNA. House Veli was tasked with protecting the concordant sequence until the right time came to use it. And that time is now. Tewu asked. The war changed everything. The Coalition wants to use the sequence to create weapons. If they succeed, they will upset the balance of the galaxy forever. Tewu rubbed his tired eyes. The more he learned, the more serious their situation seemed. We need help, he admitted. We can't do this alone. A soft beep from their security system interrupted them. Someone was at the door. Tewu reached for his hidden blaster as Nari quickly turned off the screen. Were you expecting anyone? She whispered. Tewu shook his head. He moved silently to the small security panel by the door. The camera showed a human man standing outside. He wore the plain clothes of a trader, but something about his stance reminded Tewu of military training. Stay back, he told Nari, then pressed the communication button. Who is it? A friend from Earth, the man replied. The sky is blue, the grass is green, and home is a long way from here. Tewu froze. It was an old recognition code from Earth's Military Intelligence Division. He hesitated, then opened the door just enough to see the visitor clearly. The man was in his 40s with short gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Captain Han Tewu, he said quietly. May I come in? I don't use that rank anymore, Tewu replied, not moving from the doorway. Who are you? Junho. Earth Intelligence. We need to talk. Tewu didn't lower his weapon. Earth branded me a traitor. Why would I trust you? Because Earth wants you home, Junho replied. And because I know about the woman you're protecting, may I come in? The hallway isn't the best place for this conversation. After a moment, Tewu stepped aside. Junho entered the small apartment and nodded respectfully to Nari, who watched him with cautious silver eyes. How did you find us? Tewu asked, closing the door. With difficulty, Junho admitted. You did a good job disappearing, but Earth has been looking for you since you escaped. To arrest me? Junho shook his head. To bring you in from the cold. You've been operating under outdated information, Captain. Tewu glanced at Nari, who had moved to stand beside him. What do you mean? That was Coalition propaganda, Junho explained. Earth has secretly withdrawn from the Coalition 3 weeks ago. We've learned what they truly planned for Nari, not to destroy her genetic code, but to replicate it and create biological weapons. Earth couldn't stand by any longer. Tewu felt a mix of relief and suspicion. Prove it. Junho reached slowly into his pocket and pulled out a small device. He placed it on the table and activated it. A hologram appeared, showing official, Earth government documents with dates, signatures, and seals. Earth has officially condemned the Coalition's practices and withdrawn all support, Junho said. We're not alone. Several other species have joined us. Tewu studied the documents carefully. They appeared genuine. So what happens now? A resistance has formed, Junho explained. Humans, Sylvans, even some Coalition defectors. They believe Nari's genetic knowledge could reactivate precursor communication nodes. Not for weapons, but for technology that could free us all from Coalition control. Nari stepped forward. You know about the precursors? Junho nodded. Earth has been researching them in secret for years. We found ruins on Mars that predated human civilization by millions of years. The Coalition ordered us to stop our research, but we continued in secret. Why should we trust you? Tewu asked. Because I'm here alone, Junho replied. If this were a trap, I would have brought a team. And because time is running out. The Coalition is close to creating a genetic tracker that can find Nari anywhere in the galaxy. Tewu turned to Nari. What do you think? She studied Junho carefully. His intentions seem genuine, and we need allies. She turned to Junho. What exactly do you want from us? We need to get both of you to Earth's hidden base on Europa. Our scientists have found what they believe is a precursor communication node there. They think Nari's genetic code can activate it. Nari's silver eyes widened. A functioning node? That would change everything. Taewoo wasn't fully convinced. This seems too convenient. I understand your caution, Junho said. But consider this. If Earth wanted to capture Nari for the same reasons as the Coalition, why send me alone? Why not just alert the Coalition to your location? It was a fair point. Taewoo looked at Nari, who nodded slightly. This is why our paths crossed, she said to Taewoo. Not as master and slave, but as equals with a common purpose. Taewoo considered their options. Staying on New Seoul was becoming more dangerous every day. Coalition patrols had increased in the sector, and their fake identities wouldn't hold up to serious investigation. When would we leave? He asked Junho. Tonight. I have a ship docked in the lower bay. We can be at the jump point before dawn. We'll need an hour to pack, Taewoo decided, and I want more details about this resistance and your plans for the node. Junho nodded. Of course. I'll tell you everything on the way. The older man moved to the window and looked out at the busy streets below. You should know that Commander Jiho is still hunting you. He's been promoted to lead the Coalition's Special Task Force on precursor technology. Jiho, Taewoo muttered. I should have known he wouldn't give up easily. He has a personal stake in this now, Junho said. You embarrassed him by escaping. In Coalition culture, that's unforgivable. They spent the next hour gathering their few possessions and the research data they had collected. Junho explained more about the resistance movement and the discoveries on Europa. As they prepared to leave, alarms suddenly blared throughout the outpost. Emergency lights flashed in the streets. What's happening? Nari asked, moving to the window. Junho checked a small device on his wrist. His face went pale. Coalition forces. They're conducting a sector-wide sweep. Did they follow you? Taewoo demanded. No. Junho shook his head. This is too large for that. They must have narrowed down your location to this outpost. We need to move now. They grabbed their bags and headed for the door. Junho led them through back hallways and service tunnels, avoiding the main streets where Coalition troops were already checking identities. My ship is in Bay 12, Junho said as they reached the lower levels of the outpost. It's registered under a trading company name. They shouldn't be watching it. They turned a corner and froze. A Coalition checkpoint had been set up directly in their path. Troops were scanning everyone who passed. We need another way, Taewoo whispered. Junho pointed to a maintenance door. Through there, it leads to the outer docking ring. We can circle around. They slipped through the door and into a narrow passage. The sounds of the checkpoint faded behind them. They moved quickly, following Junho's lead. Almost there, he said as they approached another door. Bay 12 is just... The door slid open before they reached it. Commander Jiho stood there with 4 armed troops. Captain Han, Jiho said with a cold smile. How convenient. Taewoo pushed Nari behind him. Junho reached for his hidden weapon but stopped when the troops raised their blasters. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Jiho said. The Sylvan female comes with us. You two can live if you cooperate. That's not going to happen, Taewoo replied. Without warning, the lights went out. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing the corridor in dim red light. In the confusion, Junho threw something that exploded in a bright flash. Run! He shouted. Chaos erupted in the narrow passage. Blaster fire lit up the darkness. Taewoo grabbed Nari's hand and they ran, following Junho toward an emergency exit. They burst into the main docking area. Bay 12, Junho pointed. The silver ship, go. As they ran across the open space, more Coalition troops appeared. In the confusion of alarms and flashing lights, Taewoo lost his grip on Nari's hand. He turned to see her being dragged away by 2 Coalition soldiers. Nari, he shouted, trying to reach her. The Coalition research facility on Proxima 4 was considered impenetrable. Built into the side of a mountain, the facility was protected by energy shields, automated defense systems, and hundreds of elite guards. Yet here stood Taewoo with a joint human-Sylvan strike team, ready to attempt the impossible. We have 30 minutes before their defense grid resets, said Minji, the team's tech specialist. She had once been a communications officer on the same coalition flagship where Tae-woo had served. Now she was part of the resistance. Everyone clear on the plan? Tae-woo asked, looking at the 12 fighters gathered around him. 6 months had passed since Nari's capture. In that time, Tae-woo had worked tirelessly with the resistance. Earth's secret withdrawal from the coalition had become public knowledge, triggering a chain reaction. Several other species had followed, forming a loose alliance against coalition. Control. The team included both humans and Sylvans, former enemies now working toward a common goal. Among them was Hanul, a Sylvan operative whose silver eyes reminded Tae-woo painfully of Nari. The primary goal is extraction, Tae-woo continued. Intelligence confirms Nari is being held in the central laboratory. We get in, we get her. Out we leave. Clear? The team nodded. They all understood what was at stake. Nari's genetic knowledge could be the key to activating the precursor node they had discovered. But more importantly to Tae-woo, she was a person who deserved freedom. Let's move, he ordered. The first part of their plan worked perfectly. Minji's tech skills allowed them to create a brief window in the facility's outer defenses. The team slipped inside through a maintenance tunnel, avoiding the main entrance entirely. Security patrols pass this junction every 8 minutes, Minji whispered, as they reached a major corridor intersection. We need to time this perfectly. They moved in small groups, using the patrol patterns to their advantage. Years of coalition military experience were now being used against the very system that had taught them. They encountered their first real resistance at the entrance to the science wing. 2 guards stood watch at a heavily reinforced door. I'll handle this, Hanul said. The Sylvan operative moved forward with silent grace. Before the guards could react, Hanul had disabled both of them without firing a shot. Sylvan combat techniques were largely unknown to coalition forces, giving them a valuable advantage. Minji hurried forward to hack the door controls. We're in, she said, as the heavy doors slid open. The science wing was a maze of laboratories and research rooms. According to their intelligence, Nari was being held in the central lab at the heart of the facility. This way, Tae-woo directed, following the memorized floor plan. They moved quickly, but carefully, disabling security cameras as they went. So far, they had managed to avoid triggering any alarms, but Tae-woo knew their luck wouldn't last forever. There, Minji pointed to a set of double doors at the end of a corridor. That's the central lab. Tae-woo felt his heart rate increase. After 6 months of searching and planning, Nari was just beyond those doors. If she was still alive, if their intelligence was correct. Cover the approach, he ordered. Hanul, Minji, with me. The 3 advanced toward the laboratory while the rest of the team secured their exit route. Tae-woo pulled out a small scanner and checked for life. Signs beyond the doors. 4 people inside, he reported. 1 reading matches Sylvan biology. She's alive, Hanul confirmed, relief evident in his voice. Minji worked on the door controls. This is heavily encrypted. Give me a moment. While she worked, Tae-woo prepared a stun grenade. They needed to disable the lab workers quickly, without harming Nari. Ready on my mark, he said as Minji gave him the signal that she had broken the lock. 3, 2, 1. The doors slid open and Tae-woo tossed in the grenade. A flash of light and a concussive wave filled the laboratory, followed by the sound of bodies hitting the floor. They rushed in, weapons raised. 3 coalition scientists lay unconscious near various workstations. And there, in the center of the room, was Nari. Tae-woo's heart nearly stopped at the sight. She was suspended in a stasis field, dozens of neural probes connected to her body. Her eyes were closed, and her blue skin looked pale. Monitoring equipment surrounded her, recording every aspect of her biological functions. Is she... He couldn't finish the question. Minji checked the equipment. She's alive, but in an induced coma. They've been probing her neural pathways, trying to extract the genetic memory of the concordance sequence. Can we safely remove her? Tae-woo asked, moving closer to the stasis field. Hanul examined the neural connections. Careful, he warned. The neural links are booby-trapped. If we disconnect them improperly, it could damage her brain permanently. Minji moved to the main control console. I need 5 minutes to safely disengage the system. Work fast, Tae-woo said, his eyes never leaving Nari's face. We may not have 5 minutes. As if on cue, alarms began to blare throughout the facility. Their presence had been discovered. Team status? Tae-woo called into his communicator. We've been spotted, came the reply. Security forces are moving toward your position. We're holding them off, but not for long. Tae-woo turned to Minji. How much longer? 3 minutes at least, she replied, her fingers flying over the controls. The system has multiple failsafes. Ha-Nul, help me secure the doors, Tae-woo ordered. We need to buy time. They moved to barricade the laboratory entrance. Through the reinforced windows, they could see coalition troops assembling in the corridor. They're bringing in heavy weapons, Ha-Nul reported. The communicator crackled with urgent messages from their team. They were being pushed back, forced to retreat toward their extraction point. Almost there, Minji called from the console. Just a few more seconds. The doors to the laboratory shuddered as something heavy slammed against them. The barricade wouldn't hold much longer. Done, Minji announced. The neural links are disengaged. We can lower the stasis field. The doors burst open. Commander, Jiho entered with a security team, weapons raised. Step away from the asset, traitor, Jiho ordered, his weapon aimed directly at Tae-woo. She has a name, Tae-woo replied, standing his ground between Jiho and Nari. What happened next would later be described in a dozen different ways across the galaxy. Nari's eyes snapped open, glowing with silver light. The neural probes the coalition had connected to her had inadvertently completed a circuit in her brain, activating the dormant concordance sequence. Energy pulsed from her body, and every piece of precursor technology in the facility. Technology the coalition had scavenged but never fully understood, activated simultaneously. A harmonic wave spread outward from Nari, disabling coalition weapons, but leaving Tae-woo and his team unaffected. Jiho and his security team froze, unable to move as their weapons and communication devices failed. Nari floated from the stasis field, her feet gently touching the ground, as the light in her eyes dimmed to their natural silver color. The precursors. Judge them, she said simply, and found them wanting. She swayed on her feet and Tae-woo rushed to support her. Can you walk? He asked. With help, she replied, her voice weak from months of disuse. Tae-woo looked at Jiho and his immobilized team. What did you do to them? Nothing permanent, Nari assured him. The concordance created a temporary neural disruption. It will fade in a few hours. We need to move, Ha-Nul urged. There will be more security forces coming. But as they made their way out of the laboratory, they found an unexpected sight. Throughout the facility, coalition forces stood frozen or confused as their technology failed around them. The harmonic wave had spread throughout the entire research center. The extraction team reports the same effect outside, Minji said, checking her communicator. All coalition tech is down. They moved quickly through the facility, meeting no resistance. At the extraction point, the rest of their team waited with amazement on their faces. What happened? One of them asked. The concordance has awakened, Nari replied. And this is just the beginning. 1 year later, on the newly established neutral world of harmony, representatives from Earth, the reformed Sylvan houses and former coalition worlds gathered to sign the Concordance Treaty. At its center stood a human man and a Sylvan woman, not as master and slave but as the architects of a new galactic order. What had begun in the research facility on Proxima 4 had spread across coalition space. The harmonic wave had activated dormant precursor technology throughout the galaxy, crippling the coalition's military advantage and forcing them to the negotiating table. Did you ever imagine this outcome when they first presented me to you? Nari asked Tae-woo as they watched the diplomats assemble. Never, he admitted. I just knew I couldn't accept what they wanted me to be. Nari smiled. In my culture, there is a saying: the universe brings together those who are meant to change its course. Tae-woo took her hand, blue skin against tan, a gesture once unthinkable, now a symbol of the new harmony between their peoples. To think, he said, they thought giving you to me would be your end. Instead, it was just the beginning. Nari's silver eyes met his. Not just for us, for everyone. Around them, the first concordance treaty of the new galactic era was signed, promising an age where no sentient being would ever again be property, where the mistakes of the past would give way to a future of